Hello everyone, Ceri the Crafter here, that's C-E-R-I the Crafter, and we're on to the next page of my concertina journal for hashtag Mixed Media March 25. Now if you don't know what that is, if you look in the description box below this video, you'll see a link there to the launch video. It's all explained there for you. So we're going on to day 12, I believe. Yes, day 12. Okay, let's put day 12 up there just so I remember what day we're on. So I'm going to be working on this page. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create something and then construct it on this page today. So I do need to do a little bit of measuring first. And I know I've measured this umpteen times, but you know, measure twice, cut once. So the maximum I can have is, I would say, 7 inches across. I will say this is 9. And if I say 9 tall, because I took ½ inch off for that, the maximum I might have is 9 actually. 9 tall. That will become relevant later. Okay, just pop all this by. Let's take this out of harm's way. So what am I going to work with today? I'm going to work with napkins, and I'm going to do something that I call a deconstructed image, but I have no idea what it's actually called. You could call it mosaic, you could call it tiling, there are so many different things you could call it. And I've pulled out some elements I'm going to use. Right, I found this in a magazine, Awaken Your Spirit. I like the idea of that, and I thought that would go down the hinge of the page. I also, once this is finished, I'm going to mount this onto a different piece of backing and put this onto the image as the Bloom Together, not logo, but sentiment, should we call it. So I need to put those safely to one side. We're going to be working with napkin, and we're going to be working, and I'm going to glue it to this, and I will say this is it's fairly flimsy cardstock. I don't know that it's a specific anything, but I'm going to glue a napkin to this. So now, sometimes you will find cocktail napkins, so I need to find the bit I want to talk about. Right, you will find napkins, napkin images where, come here, where this bit has been cut off. Don't fear, that bit is actually there. So if I open this up completely, if I really wanted to recreate something, I could, depend on which part I'd used, I could take this part of the image, glue it next to that image and it's complete. Likewise up here, I could find the section and paste it in place over there. Because I'm working with napkins, the different layers would merge into each other anyway. Now I'm not worried for today, because I know that the image I want, I need it. They got 7.5 by 8. So I know that already this is way, way big enough for me to use. So I'm going to come in and I'm just going to tear across the top here, and then the rest of this napkin will go into the scraps. Now, those who know me have seen me work with napkins many times, and you've seen the technique I use, which I'll show you again, obviously. And I always get questions, oh, Ceri, that's a lovely napkin, where you get it, where did you get it from? I collect napkins wherever I see napkins. And I'm lucky enough that I travel quite, well, not recently, but I did used to travel a lot. So wherever I was, if I saw napkins, I would grab them. You can buy fancy napkins on eBay. You can buy them on Etsy, anywhere like that. Just be aware that you're probably going to pay for, say, 2 to 4 napkins the same amount that you would pay for a bundle of 10 of them if you went to, say, a store that sold them. So just always be aware in your grocery store around seasonal times, spring, Mother's Day, things like that. Always look in the gift wrap aisle, and like where you find the plastic cutlery and all of that, you'll find that they'll crop up. I promise you they'll crop up. Now, a napkin image is normally made up of several plies, and by plies I mean several layers. Now I'm just going to moisten my fingers, and just pinch together, and I find that it pulls one off. Now I think, actually, I don't think there is another ply. Oh yes, there is. There you go. Now you can normally tell whether you've got all the layers off because the last layer is slightly stickier, and by stickier I mean it grips further to this, but you'll find that once you've taken it off, the image is almost transparent. Okay, now save these bits, I use those in a moment. Now I know on this image I don't really want this bit creeping in, so I'm just going to come in. Now, I know someone in the comments is going to say, Ceri, you can use a water brush for that. Yeah, I can use a water brush for that. I can also tear it. And by water brush, what they mean is one of those brushes that you can travel with that have water in the body of it. And as you squeeze it gently, the water comes out through the bristles. You could also just use a paintbrush with water as well. So whichever way you wish to work it. I know that I'm probably going to chop off quite a bit of the outer edge of this, so I'm not overly bothered, but I'd like to do the best I can. Now, put that there. Now, there's another thing that I'm going to need, which I use, and that is, I use plastic wrap. I use a product called Cling Film because that's my local brand. Now, someone did mention, I think it was last year when I did this, and it was a very good suggestion, and as you can still see, I've got a whole roll of this to get through. Once I've run out of plastic wrap, I could just get a sandwich bag, split the sandwich bag down the side, do the same thing, and when the sandwich bag has been used, it's got glue on it, I could wash it and then just reuse it. So therefore, I'm not using plastic all of the time. That's a very, very good suggestion. And I haven't got there yet. So I'm going to use glue stick to put this down. Just my regular run-of-the-mill glue stick. What I am going to do, however, is I'm going to come in and I'm just going to put a couple of dots with a pencil just so I know roughly the maximum I'm going to have to get the glue to. So if I fill in that entire square with glue, I'll be fine. Some people do this with Mod Podge, some people do this with matte medium. It is whatever you're comfortable doing it with. I like to make sure I've got a good even coat of glue on here, no matter what I'm using. The reason I like to use glue stick for me is it's less wet. I find with the more wetter glues, like Mod Podge, matte medium, all of that, there's a really good chance that I could get the napkin wet enough that it would tear on me. So, and I do like to use glue stick because it's less expensive than anything else. Now, if I hold this up, you can see, you may be able to see, there's a good coating. There may be little tiny areas that are not covered. So I tend to go, once I think I've got enough on there, I will come in from each and every direction, just because, especially if it's a textured paper, like this one feels slightly textured. I wouldn't be surprised if this wasn't an inexpensive mixed media paper. Now my aim is that when I put the napkin on here, I know that the glue will come up through the napkin and really grip it, which is why I like to put extra on. Don't put so much, however, that, well, you just have too many problems. So I'm going to start just by letting the bottom grip, and I'm just going to work out from the place of first contact, and I'm just touching it down with my fingers. At this point, say you saw you started wrinkles, you might gently be able to lift it up and pull it off. If you start to try and burnish it down or anything, that's when you're going to get into problems with tearing the napkins. So as you can see, there is a little bit of leeway, a little bit of time, a little bit of moving around as well if it starts doing that. So right, now that it's on there, this is where I come in with my plastic wrap. I lay the plastic wrap completely over the top of it. I do this for a couple of reasons. Number one, it stops any glue sticking to my fingers. It also means that any glue that gets pushed up through the napkin doesn't start grabbing at my fingers. It also gives me a slippery surface. Now, these are the plies I took off. These are nice and soft. Just gently, gently burnish it down. Don't go ploughing at it, because if you do that, you will, if you've got a layer of glue underneath it, you will tear the napkin. Also be aware, because sometimes your plastic wrap will start to wrinkle up. Those wrinkles can also tear your piece. Just take your time, it's worth doing. This is also the way I do it, because this really gives me a nice surface that I can work on to burnish this down. As I said, I'm just working my way around, just making sure it's all down. It also means that the glue is moving around underneath if it needs to move around and can spread out. If you've got a wrinkle that's a reasonably sized wrinkle, you can gently pull the plastic up and then go back down again if you're scared that you're going to cause a problem. There will come a point at which you're like, okay, that's got to be done. It's got to all have been put down by now. So go by your instincts with that. I probably do it a little longer than I should do, but that's because my anxiety kicks in and tells me I've not done a good enough job, but I have. So right, now that's all done. You can save this for another piece, because to be honest with you, it's dry, you don't need to worry about it. Now, when you peel the plastic wrap off, hold it down and gently pull it towards you. I try to keep it as flat to the surface as I can, so therefore it's pulling that way, not pulling up. Now, on this plastic wrap, I'm sure you'll be able to see there's now a film of glue. Just get rid of it, because it's going to be no use to man or beast. This now needs to be let dry. Don't touch it with your fingers, because as I said, the glue is permeated up through this, okay? So put it to one side and let it dry. You can put a hairdryer on it if you want. You know how long Brit stick or glue stick takes to dry. I just put it to one side and almost forget about it. If I'm doing this as a batch thing for making journal cards, so that I'll do them and usually come back the next morning. So let's put that to one side to dry. Now, what I want to do now is I want to create a background on my page. And I'm going to do this directly in my concertina book. So I need to unfold this. So is that going to be okay? I can work on that, I think. Now I'm trying to make sure that I don't get to the point where I'm pulling stuff up. Actually, that should be okay like that. Yeah, that should be fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of plastic wrap, and I'm going to wrap this backwards around here. I would if I could. Well, that's a bottle of paint on the floor. Luckily enough, it wasn't open, so it's just rolling around the floor. Just make sure I don't tread on it. So I'm just going to fold that back, because I'm going to be doing stuff. I'm not going to go past that line of the hinge anyway. I just want to make sure I don't overdo it. Because what I want to do is I want to create a delicate, slightly patchworky looking background for this, because this sort of smacks countryside to me. So I thought if I can do something that's ever so slightly delicate in the background, I would be happy with that. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to use yellow oxide. I need the tiniest bit of paint. That's probably enough to do 3 pieces. So I'm just going to brayer it out onto my plate. Can you see me? You can. And then I'm going to come in with a bit of that newsprint. Could be any paper. I'm just using this because this is what I use to clean up now. I'm putting that down, lifting it off, and it's this I want. So I'm going to come in now, take this piece, lay it on my page, and peel it up. See, I want that effect. So I'm going to do a couple of those because I've got enough paint. I don't care if they're all the same. intensity and color, that doesn't bother me. So I'm just taking these pieces off, just building myself, which I will go to the hinge, I'm okay with that. Just building myself a bit of a ghosted effect. Whatever's left on here, you know me by now, it'll just go onto a book page. So if there's a little bit of a build-up of colour on here, that's fine. So that was actually yellow oxide. I'm going to come in now, and this is chrome green hue. It's a new paint for me, so I'm not sure exactly how it goes. But I like the colour of it to start with, so I was trying to keep those natural sort of colours going. Oh, it's a bit army green, but that's actually fine. I can deal with army green. Again, put it on. I'm not burnishing. I'm just trying to take the excess off it. I think we'll come in from there. Just tap it down, peel it back. And this is also how I build up like an old wall type effect if I was doing it for another project. It does give a great effect. I don't think there's anything left on there, but if there is, I'm just going to pop it across there. Sometimes you'd be surprised what's left on the plate and you can't see it. Like that little bit there's gorgeous. While I'm thinking about it, talking about the effect, okay, this is my personal journal. This page was created using this effect, okay? Just so you can see, you can do bigger stuff with it. Now, I quite like that green, and I think I do want another piece of it in here. So I'm just gonna put the tiniest bit down, just to give myself a little bit more of it. And actually, that braided out so fine, I think I'm just gonna come straight back in and pop it down. There you go. Do I care it's slightly crooked? Actually, my normal self would be a yes, but I know what's happening with the covering of this page, so I'm okay with that. So that was the green. Now I've got a bit of a brighter green, which I'm going to do as more of a top layer. I'm now going to come in with pale lemon. You don't have to use these exact colours, guys, if you want to recreate this. This is just the colour choices I made this morning. I finished breakfast, came up here, had a look through the paints and went, you know what, that's the colour scheme I want for today. Again, braid that out quite thinly. Pick that little bit off there. Now, obviously, where the paints lay over each other, they will give you a different intensity. See, I think that's interesting. I actually put yellow paint on here, didn't realise there was actually green paint still on the brayer because I forgot to clean it off properly and ended up with that. But that's actually fine. I'm not worried about that. As I said, I'm looking for an old country farm wall type look. That green just keeps on giving. Note to self, clean your brayer in between, which is exactly what I'm going to do now, because I did want the pale lemon in there. And that green is just giving and giving. I must remember that one for the future. Just move that down there. Dry my brayer off. Let's try that colour again. Me and paint lids, I tell you. They're not my friend. So now I'm actually going to leave this one without picking the excess up because I didn't want that intensity there. So I'm going to come in across these and this will just mute down that colour. And pop that in there. See, so I've just managed to get that cleaned up a bit now. and I've got back the colours I was looking for. That sort of muted pastel palette. Let's just clear the brayer off. That was literally a clean-up. That wasn't meant to be anything. These pieces of paper will just go to one side. They'll get stamped on. They'll be used as pickups. They'll be used in the future. Right. Now, I think I want to come in. I've got to be careful now because I'm about to use orange. And if I have orange and green together, I am likely to make brown. So I have to be a bit careful here. Although I was planning to use green anyway. And the green is a transparent. That's one of the things I'm worried about. I think I'm going to do the little bit of green I was going to use. And it's purely there just to lighten up, to give light and shade. I think I just want a little bit of it down there. I shouldn't go all the way up the side there. That's a secondary colour anyway. See, it just adds a little more vitality to this. Get this off here. This green is basically a mixed bottle, guys. It's sort of a lime kiwi type colour. It's a very yellow green. I think that's why I like it. I'll use a little bit more of it on there though. Now, I only have the rectangle, circle and triangle in the minis. I was looking for the square and I don't have the square. I would much rather have been using a combination of rectangles and squares than what I'm using here, just the one style. But I'm not about to go and buy another set of mini gel plates just so I can use one of them. I do have a couple of small damaged gel plates that I found on eBay. And one day I think I'm actually going to cut myself a 3-inch square, which is not perfect, but I can certainly get away with it. Now, if this doesn't give me the effect I'm looking for, I will reach for a more opaque orange. So, but I think I should be okay. Now this is actually transparent, so semi-transparent, translucent, whichever colour you wish, whatever you wish to call it. So I just expect it to be pale. Okay, it did. I'm pleased with that. I was worried that I would lose it. I'd like to quite like redo that area there. There, a little bit there. Right. Am I happy with what I've got? Kind of. I think I want to put a little bit of yellow into this. That's what I'm working with. I think there's a yellow version of this. You know, it's not yellow, it's champagne gold. And I'm going to give this a go because I'm unsure. I don't use this colour too often. That's a bit of a mess. I have to clean that one up later. Pull that up so you can see it. You can see me. Right. Now this is very, very sheer. So let's just pop it down in the middle there. Okay, I can live with that. I'd like to get this. I'm struggling to get paint onto that one edge, and it could be me being nervous about touching the area of my book here, the one I've covered to protect it. Yeah, why am I worried about it? Okay, that's given me a nice delicate background. So what I want to do now is I'm going to stop the video for a second, well, 2 seconds for you. I'm going to hit this with a hairdryer. I'm also going to get my napkin covered card, and I'm going to hit that with the hairdryer as well, just to make sure everything is really dry before I start the next bit. Now, this has to be completely and totally and 100% dry before you do what I'm about to do with it, okay? I am going to bring in my guillotine, and I don't recommend using a guillotine. I'm only using it for speed at this point. I'm going to do all of the important cutting by hand, but I'm going to trim off the excess of this. And the reason I'm saying don't use a guillotine or a trimmer to do the cutting up of this, and that's because you'll find that if there's even the slightest bit, it could, if it's slightly damp, the guillotine will smear it. The trimmer might rag the edge. So I'm just going to come in. I'm not actually cutting the image at this point. I'm just cutting these excess pieces off, just so I can then get to the point where I know where I am with the whole image. Right, so this is what I've got to work with. Now, this is where I'm going to bring back in my measurements. Now, I know that 7 is as wide as I can go, and I just want to see where 7 takes me to. 7 takes me to absolutely almost the edge. So, let me just go and have a look at my book a second. I think I'm going to go 6 3/4 because I need to have a little bit of wiggle room. So there's 6 3/4. All I'm losing is the end of leaves. That doesn't bother me. Now I think the height should be fine, because the height was, I've got 9 inches and this is 8 1/4. Actually, what I do need is I need these to be whole numbers. I just realized. So I take that down. So I'm going to have to do 8 by 6. It'll all become apparent in a few seconds. So that's 8 inches. So this needs to be down to 6. Right. I think I will take just to the edge of there. Okay, now because my trimmer, the mark is here, I'm never 100% certain that mark is exactly correct. So I'm going to come in from the other side and mark 6 inches with the ruler, just because it's going to be really important that this is exactly what the size it needs to be. Now, it could be that 6 is the right place, and it kind of does. I have trust issues, guys. Right, this is our panel. All of this can now go in the waste, and this can leave me and not come back. Now, the next bit is where accuracy comes in. If you've got something, let's see if I can find it. If you've got something like this, which is a quilting ruler, you will find this quilting ruler is exactly 1 inch wide. What you plan to do is you plan to do a grid on the back of this of 1 inch wide strips. So I could come in, line up on the end of there, take a pencil, draw a line, and then I will know that that is 1 inch wide. Okay? As you can see, however, because I'm using a ruler, it's 1 inch and 1/16. So just be careful of that. I know I sound like I'm getting very paranoid about this, but I want to make sure that we're all on the same page with this. So that's why I will use measurements instead of using a quick fix like that ruler there. That's a sharper pencil. So I'm going to come in and mark this. So 1, 2. I'm going to do exactly the same down here. No one is going to see these marks. Don't press so hard, however, that they go through to the other side of the page, because that would not be a good thing, would it? Then I'm going to join these up. Now, I'm probably going to sorry, brain stopped for a second. I might actually clip this bit of the video out when I do it in the other direction. It depends on the overall length of this video. So if I suddenly come back and you've seen I've done both sides, that's the reason I've done it. So here we are. I've now created a grid 6 by 8. Now, I didn't draw on the front because I didn't want to have to try and get rid of the marks later on. However, what I now need to do is I now need to come in with the scissors and I need to cut these. Now I'm going to cut one on screen for you, just because it's important that you see one of the stages. Now be as accurate as you possibly can. Now, after every time I cut a strip, I will sit this down to one side and lift my strip up just so I can see. I want to keep these in order all the way along. So, and I'm going to line them up on my work surface so that they are a giant jigsaw puzzle. It'll become very, very important later on, because when you start building this, you're going to find that you're going to have pieces going all over the place. You need to make sure that you've got your image in the right orientation. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this with the entire image, because you certainly don't need to see me cutting this, and then I'll be back to you. And I'm back. I can't say that was the most fun I've ever had. I didn't take into consideration I needed to open this all the way out for filming. You guys won't have that problem because you won't have to deal with the camera. So I've reconstructed it just laying it out on this page. Actually, it gives me a good reference point anyway. Now, I now need to evenly space these on here. Now, I can see already that I've got more than enough height, but I want a straight line across the top. So you may remember, probably on day one, if you watched, I had strips of masking tape, low tack masking tape. I'm just going to put one of those strips right across the top, just so that I've got a straight line to adhere to. Excuse my arm. And I know I've got a straight line to adhere to down here. Now, I recommend laying out this and this before you glue anything down, because I'm not going to be drawing a grid on here to stick them down to. I'm going to be eyeballing them. And once you've got the top and one side done, it'll give you the alignment for all of the rest. Also, I'd quite like this to be reasonably close to the center of the page. So by putting them down here, as you can see, I now know how much space I've got. Now I do have this strip down here, so I'm going to leave myself about the same strip down there. In fact, why don't I just grab another bit of tape and I can put that down there. And then what that will do is it will give me a guideline. Now, the reason I want the top and the sides down is because if I want even spacing, I'm going to have to take the spacing from here to make that work. And the reason for that is because there's less room this way than there is this way. It'll all make sense when you do it. This is definitely one for those out there who like doing puzzles. And it'd be nice if I kept to the same row. So I don't worry that things are straight until I start gluing them down. I just want some idea of what the spacing is likely to be. So you can see what I mean now about the height. I've only got about this much of a gap to be using. I also need to remember that I've got a number to put in here. So if I close those up a little bit, then I'll be okay. So I'm going to start gluing them down. Yes, I don't mind if it's slightly over this way. So I might just bring this over just fractionally. It's all pivotal on this one thing. So I'm going to use art glitter glue for this. You use whichever glue you need to use. Just, you have to keep track of the orientation of things as you pick them up and put them down. And with art glitter glue, when it's down, it's down. You've got very little wiggle time. There's my little bit of green. I'm just going to come in, set that one down. So that is my anchor point. Now, if you are someone who has to go in and draw a grid, you could try, but the problem is, how are you going to erase the line in between? That's what has made me fall foul of it in the past. So again, come in, I'm going to eyeball and line the top up. Yeah, this is very much one for the puzzle makers out there and those of us who have a little bit of an OCD problem. But once it's done, it looks wonderful. I've done one of these in my art journal, I believe. Yes, I did do it in my art journal. It gets easier. Once you've done this and this, you've then got somewhere to work from. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go silent, because I don't put music into my videos. And I'm going to fast forward this. Just know there's going to be no talking, no noise, no anything. You're just going to see me putting these down, and you will see how it all comes together. Because this repetitiveness is going to drive you a bit bonkers. See, I still have a nice gap down there, so I can actually put my number and my signature down here. I don't mind this, remember, I've got a strip that I'm going to put down. Now, my intent is for this strip to go here, but if I've got enough room, I could easily put it here and put something else down there. I do have a box of trims I could use. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to go quiet. As I said, I am certainly not going to put music on this. There's going to be no noise whatsoever, so your devices haven't gone a bit weird. I'm going to glue the entire thing down, and you'll see it fast forwarding at double speed or triple speed, whatever, and then I'll come back once I've got to the point where it's all in place and I can go to the next stage. Okay, see you in a bit. Well, I bet you're pleased I put that on fast forward, aren't you? I can't even tell you how long that took me to do. And I nearly stuck that one on the wrong way around because I kind of lost focus. Right, it's all stuck down. You can see the effect. Yes, you could go in and measure and all that lot, but I quite like the fact that I know it's never going to be perfect, so why don't I just embrace the imperfections? And I like that. Now, I'm going to bring in the hairdryer. I'm going to drop the volume down really low. You'll hear it in the background, but I'm going to drop it because I just want to warm this tape up before I release it, because I don't know there's paint on here. I do not want it peeling the paint up. So bear with me for a little bit. Now that is low tack masking tape, so I didn't expect it to pull up for real. I just didn't want to take the chance. So now I've got decisions to make. I mean, look, I'll put that more central for you now. So I like that. As I said, I've got a couple of more elements to go on here, and I might put a trim on this as well. So I do have Awaken Your Spirit, which could go down there. I also have this, which I want to put onto a backing. I'm not sure what color backing. Now I have options. I could put that over there. It fits perfectly onto that strip. Or I could put it here because I haven't got this centralized. Now, if you wanted to absolutely make sure this is 100% centralized, what you need to do is you need to make this measurement, find the center, and if you've got a central tile, or I've got two central tiles, put them down first and then work out from the center. Okay, it just takes a bit more effort. Now, the other thing I could do is I could put that down there, which is actually rather nice as well. And I'm leaning towards that. So I just want to pull in my box of trims to see if I've got anything that would sort of go in that. I've got a feeling I do have one. So this is my box of trims. I make trims out of pretty much anything I want to make a trim out of, actually. Spare bits of paper. Where can I put this? It's so tricky when you're trying to film. So things like this. I mean, that would be too big to go down there. But I do like... Depends on what I've got that is actually... See, that's not too jarring. Let's put that to one side. I doubt it, but that's just... It's a bit too vibrant for me, but you never know. That's better. That's better than that one anyway. I've got a feeling in here I've got like a mosaic one, and I want to say I've made it. Actually, there it is. Oh, it's way too wide. Yes, I mean, I could cut it down, but that's a little bit tile overkill, isn't it? This, by the way, these are just double-sided tape on a bit of craft paper. The other ones are actually ones that I've drawn or painted. I don't like that one. I'm sort of leaning towards this one, to be honest with you. I just want to make sure I'm not missing out on one that I should be using. I'll put it that way round. I'm not keen on the black on that one. I am really being drawn to this one. I think I'm being drawn to this one because I know I've got black on that. So I think we're going to do this one, guys. I mean, it'll sit there quite nicely. It does encroach ever so slightly on there. Does that bother me? I could take a smidgen off with the guillotine and lose that black line there. See, there's one last look and see if there's anything. I keep pulling this one in, but then that encroaches on the design as well. I think I'm going to try and trim this down a bit. So let me just go and get the guillotine. I can't do it with you, so I'm going to have to just do it without you. Okay, guys, sorry about that, but when you're trying to cut this much off something and you're trying to look through a screen to do it, I can't do it. So this now fits perfectly down there, and I'm going to put that down, and then I'm going to trim off. Now I know I can just take this last one off, it's not going to be used. I'm just going to glue it on with glue stick because it's paper to paper. And it also covers up this little bit here where I went over. I was trying so hard to get that area coloured with paint. Make sure that's on this side of the crease because I don't want it sticking out of the edge of the book. That covers up that hinge nicely. That's right, just grab a little pair of scissors somewhere. A little pair of scissors somewhere. I do have a little pair of scissors somewhere. That's okay, I'm liking that. I'm pleased I did that. That complements that lovely. I'm now going to come in and put that down. Now, am I worried? What do I want to put this in the middle? Is it going to... Actually, I think I'm just going to judge it, because the thing is, if I try and put it equidistant, when I put the number in, it's going to throw it anyway. Or should I line it up with the top of that? No, I'm just going to wing that one. This is paper to paint, but if it starts to peel off, I can always stick it down again, because this journal is only for me, which means I will always be able to repair it if I need to. Is that straight? It is. Okay, awaken your spirit. I like that. That's beautiful. Right, this one's wrong. It should have been twisted. I guess that's where that's going to go then. Okay, see, for all my careful planning, this should be the other way around. So there you go. As you can see, I've done that. See, sir, mistakes happen. It's just me not focusing properly. Right, so I am going to put that up there. I now need to find some paper or something to mount it onto. Right, I think I'm going to glue it down to this. It's a bit of coffee-dyed, thickish paper. Let's put it on there. Let's see if I can pull a bit of this in. And what I want to do is I'm going to glue this onto there, then tear around the edges. Fingers crossed I don't ruin the entire thing. And then I'm going to ink them. A bit of a smooth. Get that out of the way before I put my hand in it. So now, do I want to use... I might just use a regular ruler. Right, bear with me. I'm going to try and do this just by eye. I wanted to tear the edge because the torn edge will take the ink differently to a cut edge. So I'm just going to come in with some Distress ink, Vintage Photo. And I think Vintage Photo is what I want to use purely because this is quite a natural looking arrangement, and this really dictates. I wonder how many of you were shouting at me when you saw me put that one down. Why did I not notice that? It's very unlike me not to notice things like that. Right, this is paper to paper, so I can use glue stick again. So just put that on there. And as long as you don't tell anyone, I won't tell anyone. And I think that's just going to cure that problem. And actually, I quite like it a little further up. It gives the illusion that there's something under there where that stem is going to. Now, what's left to do? Okay, I'm just going to pause the video because I'm going to put the number and my signature in here. And here we go, all finished. Now, I did this with a napkin. You don't have to do this in a napkin. You could just take an image from a magazine. You could take a photograph and cut it up. You don't need to do the whole process. I did this because I wanted to share with you a napkin technique and how to use them, because I know lots of you have napkins. You also don't have to make 1 inch squares. You could do 2 inch squares. You just need to make sure that your overall dimensions are divisible by. So I could have done 2 inches, 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 and I would have had a bigger piece. Okay, just know. Also, if you really want to be a bit sadistic, you could go down to 1/2 inch and do it, but don't call me. Seriously, I'm not doing that. And even if you do have a mistake, just embrace it. If it's down with something that you can lift off quick enough, fine, but that was down with art glitter glue. I was never going to be able to get it off the page, but by doing this, it just looks as if there is a bud at the end of that stem. I'm not worried about that. So, I'm Ceri the Crafter, that's Ceri the Crafter, and I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye now.